Welcome to Believe in Commanders podcast. Scott Jackson, Anthony Armstrong here with you for another episode as we are into July, Anthony, which means we're also into training camp months. Pretty exciting stuff as we're getting closer. I want to remind folks, of course, to give us a like, give us a comment, give us a follow wherever you get your better podcasts, and of course, subscribe as well. So it's getting closer, Anthony, but it's also, I feel like that dog days of summer where we're getting workout videos, a lot of those, right, with players, and their trainers usually send them out because the trainers, it's a big flex for them, right? Look Absolutely. How good my client looks, look what I'm doing. And then we get, of course, the unfortunate stuff if you're in Commanders world right now or with the Steelers or with the Bengals, which is contract dispute talk, which I absolutely hate it.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of those. Not a fan of that. But you know what? I think hopefully we get something done soon. But yeah, you ain't lying. Dog days of summer are real. This is the part where, you're itching to get out there and play football again, but you're away from your team. This is probably the only vacation these guys are going to get during this period. So how you handle yourself, so important. So important. What do you do with this time? I mean, are you still, taking care of your body? You see the videos, but then also you got to get a little time away. Make sure you spend some time with the family because, hey, you're not getting the day off.
Right.
So you got your late bye week, and then you're thinking playoffs. So they got to make sure they enjoy themselves now.
So when you were in this world, and a lot of times we've talked about on the show, you're a roster back end guy, hoping to get on the team, making sure you're making the team. Did you allow yourself to get downtime, or are you always ultra paranoid? Like, no, I got this time. I got to do more.
Man, I was training in Florida, so I would go down there and train with Pete Bomarito and his Bomarito Performance Systems, and you'd be next to the beach and you'd get to get your work in. So I was still training, always wanted to stay on the edge, but I was sure to dial it back a little bit so it wasn't as intense as it was in OTAs and things like that, but had to make sure I stayed a little bit sharp.
Well, again, Believe in Commanders podcast, part of the Believe Network. Thanks for being along with us here this week. The Terry McLaurin update, if you want to call it an update, there's no update. Adam Schefter was on Pat McAfee's show early in the week and said, hey, they're still not talking or getting anywhere, at least. Maybe they're swapping, ideas, but it's not going anyplace right now. And, a lot of it is what the market's been set at, guys. He's been as good as, right, a DK Metcalf. T. Higgins, of course, Jamar Chase, one of the top guys, along with Justin Jefferson in the league. All those guys did recent extensions, so they gave him a barometer. And, of course, probably from the Commander side of it, that 30, we've been talking about that, going to be 30 early in the season, Mark. Maybe they think, hey, you're more like, a guy like Mike Evans, who just did a new deal, which was, in the 20s per year. To stick with the franchise that he's always been with, so maybe they're looking for something like that. You can even look at Devontae Adams, also in the low 20s. And his deal is he got a deal done with the Los Angeles Rams, so that was a new team. So anyway, it's not going anywhere yet. I don't know. To me, I'm not as stressed about this as some are, but as you know, there's these weird Facebook posts daily. Hey, he's getting traded here, wants to be traded there. I had a good friend of mine who I thought was really level-headed say to him this weekend, please tell me they're not really trading the Steelers. I'm like, what? Where did that come from?
Yeah, no, I hope not. I don't think anything like that would come through. I know that's what they tout out there. Trade TJ Watt for Terry McLaurin and maybe a few other little pieces in there. Sure, that's a tremendous upgrade to your pass rush situation. Sure. But I don't think that this fan base would do too kindly to that. I know what this Mavs fan base went through whenever they made the trade with Luka Doncic. All right, so you want to hear some people be pissed off? Let Terry McLaurin get out of the building. He still got my sign up until it happens. But I do think that he is going to end up happening. One, and I think it's going to fall probably closer to 30, but maybe not 30 million. All right, I'm thinking it's 28, 27, 28, maybe, a little front heavy to give him some dollars there. But I just saw this great documentary about the guaranteed money. It's a whole thing. It was on the Pablo Torre Finds Out. Great video. So if you check it out, Scott, it makes it interesting to think about how the front offices could be looking at the guaranteed money and what they want to do with Terry. I mean, especially being at that age. But, I mean, the guy's productive. We know who he is. You know how he's going to show up ready to go. I know he's taking care of himself in this downtime. He's going to show up ready to go, and he's probably preparing for a bit of a holdout. I mean, I think at this point he may have to hold out a couple of days just to make sure he puts his feet in the ground and say, hey, I'm serious about this. Make sure you get this thing taken care of.
You know, it's interesting. There's 3 guys holding out right now might be holdouts. They're not holdouts yet. They skipped OTAs for their mandatory minicamps and OTAs. TJ Watt, Terry McLaurin, obviously Trey Hendrickson. And I think all 3 guys at the core are very team-oriented, right? And they care about their teams. In Hendrickson's case, it's not his first team, but obviously Watt's always been a Steeler. Terry's always been a Commander. But, sometimes, you can understand why an organization may take that stuff for granted, right? Like, oh, these guys are good. They're going to come play ball. But you're right. I mean, they may have to, do something drastic and skip a couple days, show up a little slower than normal to get everybody's attention. I think at the end of the day, all those guys are going to play this year. I mean, it's not worth it sitting out half the season to do that thing. It just has not been a good strategy in the past for guys to do that kind of stuff. I mean, let me see what Hassan Reddick didn't look like the same person when he came back. So, he got some money this offseason, though. But I just think, look, I'd hate for this to drag into next offseason because it could, right? They could always tag him. They could play that game. But that's just not ideal because, again, you're going to have Debo coming up. You have a bunch of other contract issues coming up. And you just want to do this, get it done this offseason, have it off your plate. And, then you can start figuring out the other stuff as you move forward, which I'm sure they're already in the process of doing. So hopefully it gets done. Again, we have time. There's still 3 weeks-ish, more than that till training camp. And really maybe the deadline is more like week 1, right? I mean, they could still talk during, the training camp period.
Yeah, I don't want it to get too far into training camp, though, because I know that there's timing that needs to be done. You need to get on the same page as your quarterback. And it's tough to do that during the regular season week. Like, you don't want to have to sit there and try to think of game plan and then be like, hey, still get on the same page as me for this back shoulder throw. Like, at this point, we need to be focusing on what's coming up this week, not trying to, get caught up of what we missed in the summer. So the sooner that they can get together, the better. I'd love to get those guys back in the fold. But I know this much, the people in the backfield, there is no Terry McLaurin. You're going to have some help with the running game because there's going to be a lot of people up in the box. They're going to be challenging Jayden Daniels and the rest of this offense. So the running back crew, I had seen an article on PFF that had them ranked as number 14 in the league. And the article said it was surprisingly high. What do you think about that ranking with them being about 14th?
Yeah, I think that's about right. Like the middle, like as a collection, right? We're not talking about just one singular player. Like this, they're not like the Eagles who have Saquon Barkley or the Ravens who have Derrick Henry. We're talking about as a running attack with Brian Robinson, Austin Eckler. You got to include, what Chris Rodriguez did at times last year, and of course, McNichols, also filling in there when he got his opportunities. Jeremy McNichols, did some good things. And yes, the quarterback, Jayden Daniels, is kind of part of the run. I don't know if that's how PFF graded it, but he certainly is an influencer in the running game. So I'd say that's about right. And I think that's why, if you look at it, there were ebbs and flows, right? There were some weeks where Robinson was just a terror. He was running over people. He was unstoppable. There was other weeks he was getting hit behind the line of scrimmage or running into guys behind him. I think he dealt with some injuries throughout the year. Obviously, Eckler missed time with the concussion. And I think the upgrades in the offensive line should help all parties involved this offseason. And, the guy, obviously the X factor, the young kid Krosky Merida comes in from Arizona. If he gets on the field with the explosion, that he could add explosiveness that he could add to that dynamic. Yeah,
you mentioned that you weren't sure if they mentioned Jayden Daniels. They definitely did. He said that perhaps the most overlooked fact about the running game is quarterback Jayden Daniels. I mean, the guy is electric, over 800 yards, almost 900 yards on the ground. Now, I don't think he has to have that much of an impact on the ground this upcoming season. I would love to see a little bit more consistency from the running back room. I would love to have more people healthy. I think Cliff Kingsbury does a great job of getting the ball to different people in different positions. Krosky Merritt's a Swiss Army knife, in my opinion. He's going to be fresh, too. So if you can still get that physical run-in attack from B-Rob, and he's running behind his pads and running angry like he does when he's the best, when he's running his best, then you really are going to get the most out of this room. And to think that, like, okay, look, hey, my carries may be down. Maybe I get 12 to 14 carries, but you get to make those your best carries that you have. You don't have to worry about going in there and, hey, maybe I got to run a route and I'm not that good at running the routes or catching the passes out of the backfield. Don't have to worry about knocking your confidence. Krosky Mary can come in there and work some of those things. Austin Eckler can do that as well. So as a collective, I'm not mad at it being 14th. It was a little bit higher than I thought. I didn't really know where you were going to rank it. But when you look at overall, Austin Eckler's a vet. Yes, the concussion happened, but he is an impactful player. He saved this offense, probably second most behind Jayden Daniels. So it makes sense. I'm good with 14th. I'm excited to see what they do this upcoming year. Want to see some more running game happen a little bit, but I don't know how it's going to attack. I don't know how Cliff Kingsbury is going to roll it out.
It's going to be interesting to see the roster cut too, because I think you look at last season. I don't think a lot of people had McNichols in their final 53, but there he was. And Jeremy did some really good things throughout the season.
Block.
Yeah, pass blocking. He's, Swiss Army knife kind of guy too. Is special teams guy. You need those kind of players. And I kind of feel bad for Rodriguez because he was kind of on the practice squad and work his way up, but was really important in some games when the other guys weren't as effective, late in the season. He was strong. You think of that Atlanta game, how important he was there. And the game in New York against the Giants and up at the MetLife Stadium, he had a really good finish to that football game. And then, we're talking about the new guy from Arizona, but there's the old guy from Arizona from last offseason, Michael Wiley, who looked excellent in training camp and in the preseason. And a lot of us thought we're going to make the team, instead he didn't. And of course, was on the practice squad all year. So I'm interested to see him. I think it was pretty telling. Somebody had brought up, one of the coaches had brought his name up last week or 2 weeks ago, rather, whatever it's been now, when they last had minicamp about, how he's had a really good offseason too. So not to forget about him.
Nice. Okay, so you have a lot of options there. Now, it makes me think about playing the numbers game.
Right.
Playing the numbers game. I'm looking to see, well, shoot, maybe you keep an extra running back for what they can do on special teams because McNichols has value. Yep. If you can pass block in this league, that is valuable. It's just like if you can take a kick to the house, you're going to find yourself on somebody's roster. You keep picking up the blitz and you keep protecting your quarterback as a running back, you're going to be able to be on somebody's field. Obviously, catching the ball out of the backfield will be huge. So later on in training camp when we do our eventual 53-man, projection, I may lean on saying maybe we got to have a couple, an extra running back, and then what other position do you have to pull from in that situation? So maybe you don't have to worry about so much on cut day. It's another position that could have to deal with it.
Believe in Commanders podcast here on the Believe Network. Give us a like, give us a comment, give us a follow where you follow your better podcasts. We appreciate you coming along with myself, Scott Jackson, and Anthony Armstrong, of course. And let's talk about another running back, one that's in this division who was certainly the most influential player, difference-making player of the new players last year. That, of course, is Saquon Barkley. He was awesome last year, and obviously the Commanders still trying to figure out how to slow him down, and that's what they spent their whole offseason doing, and their offseason focus is about slowing down Saquon Barkley in that Eagles running game. So he had something interesting to say, I guess, at a charity softball game. Somebody had asked him, I guess, about free agency a year ago, who was interested, whether Washington or Dallas, got in on it. And he said, no, I didn't hear from either one of them. And that's why it is BTA every time now. And, for those that don't know,
it stands for bacon, tomato, and avocado. That is what he was saying. That's the type of sandwich that he eats pregame against Washington and Dallas. That must be what it is. Yeah. Couldn't be anything else.
The belt to their arse, if you will. But anyway, we don't have the bad rating on our thing for the dirty word rating. Anyway, so that's what he said, and I kind of thought it was funny, laughed it off. But when you really think about it, Anthony, would he have even answered the phone if the Commanders had called coming out of 2023? They were a 4-win team. They had just changed coaches, obviously. A whole new front office, a whole new everything. They hadn't even drafted to this point, so he doesn't know who the quarterback is or what they're even going to do. Did that make any sense for a guy who's the Giants, who were the team that actually beat them twice? Would it make sense for him to go backwards in the division? I mean, I don't feel like that was ever even in the cards. They didn't have the Eagles' offensive line. It just seems like it's just one of those things that players make up in their head to be angry at somebody.
I mean, I get it, but the thing is it wasn't like he was it wasn't like a restricted, free agent or franchise tag where they had to
he was unrestricted
offer and it could be matched type of a thing. They let that man go out and be free. You let your girl go out there and go find somebody new, and she did. the fact that you didn't, even if you didn't think that he was going to consider it, I feel like you'd at least have to pick up the phone and say, hey, let me tell you about what we got working over here. Yes, we went 4 wins, but we have the 2nd overall pick, and we're tracking to get this young fella in Jayden Daniels. You get the solidified backfield. So I could see where maybe we should have made that conversation, but it's Saquon Barkley.
And well, now we say it's Saquon Barkley. Now we say it's Saquon Barkley, but let's think back a year ago. Like, go back. He has been coming off some injury seasons. He was averaging under 4 yards a carry for the first time in his career after that last year of the Giants. So there was it looked like, like it was on the downward, dive a little bit. And yeah, he went to the right place. Same with Derrick Henry. I know nobody remembers this stuff. Everybody remembers what they last saw, but those guys were not the same people they were last year in their new uniforms. And again, would he have had those running lanes in Washington that he had in Philadelphia? I don't think so. I think it's a cool thing for people to say, oh, yeah, the Cowboys is the team that should be ashamed of themselves this thing. I don't think Adam Peters goes to bed at night thinking, damn it, I should have signed Saquon Barkley, because he couldn't sign Saquon Barkley. It wasn't going to happen.
I just know this much. It's one of them ones where it's like, when you see kids get recruited nowadays, and then they're going to get their first offer from somebody, and deservedly so. But it's usually a lowly school, smaller team. Every now and again, it may be a big dog, but the first offer is just somebody got to put their foot in the water. Very rarely do you see a kid commit there, because the bigger schools start to show up. I say at least go ahead and you should have at least made that conversation if it was available. You know what I mean? Because you could have presented something and kind of sold me on what the future was going to be. He may have ultimately said, nah, this other team is literally right away from the Super Bowl. But if you had to compare both, side by side, I would have probably chosen Philly, because you're like, hey, which one has had the most recent success over here? What do you know about, Washington? Maybe it hadn't been the most successful thing, but you talk about him being down the most previous years. His quarterback situation was not very good.
No, it wasn't. But he also dealt with some injuries, obviously, after his first 2 years in the season. And it kind of built himself back up. And even that year he came back after the one ACL, he didn't look like Saquon Barkley, but he was slowly building back up. You're right. No, he's still
2020.
The Eagles saw value in him, and remember, they've since re-upped the money because they got them on kind of a cheaper deal when you think about it now, what he did. But the Cowboys is the team, like, they got dogged really hard about Derrick Henry, because Derrick Henry, wanted to be there supposedly, right? That he was interested in him even the previous year when the Titans were trying to trade him, or reportedly trying to trade him. So I think that's the one that would have made sense for him. Had they called him, I could see him, going, okay, I'll go down to Dallas. Mike is there. Dak needs some help, and they have some pieces. I could have seen that taking place, but I don't think there's any way, unless the Commanders did like one of those old Vinny Serrato, Dan Snyder deals where they're overspending.
No, man.
Overspending. You know what I mean?
No, man. You roll out the best presentation. I'm talking about you got vets that are saying, sending videos, Saquon, let me tell you about the history. Like, you roll out that type of thing, man. I'm talking Mark Rippon. I need to see London Fletcher, Santana Moss. Bring all them people in to sell it on that top free agent. But it's all good.
The old days, they would have sent Dan's plane, and they would have flown him in and all that crap. And they wouldn't have been able to sign anybody else. But hey, we had Saquon Barkley, everybody. It's great.
That is
Jayden
true.
Daniels and Saquon, and that's it. There wouldn't even be like a guy like Ertz wouldn't have been affordable, or certainly Bobby Wagner. I just think about think all the free agents they signed last year, right? And one of the reasons they could sign the volume in the 2024 offseason was because they didn't overextend themselves anywhere. A lot of it was show me deals, prove it market kind of deals, and it worked out very well. So I don't know. I mean, it sounds great. Yes. Would you plug and play Saquon Barkley in this offense and be better? Oh, 100%. It'd be great. But the reality is, and I think he knows if he's telling the truth, the Commanders would have called him after that 4-win season. And I don't know, maybe deep down he always, respected Dan Quinn's defenses, and he would have taken the call. I don't know. But I got a hard time believing he would have ever really thought anything serious about the Commanders.
I mean, hey, that's like, whenever Ron said we're going to turn over every stone to find a quarterback, and he called the Chiefs. And I can respect him for that. I can respect that. You got to be like, hey, who is this?
Sure.
This is Washington football team calling. What's up with your QB? Click. I mean,
Yeah.
At
What do you
least I
think Andy
called,
Reid
right?
really said to Ron Rivera when he called him about Patrick Mahomes? If that is in fact what happened, I also want to caveat.
You at
I don't
least got a call. I'm not mad at it. Shoot your
know.
shot. Worst she gonna say is no. Worst she gonna
You
say is
want
no.
what? You want who? Get out of here.
You gotta try.
Nice
You gotta
talking
try.
to you. Yeah, nice talking to you. You got any big 4th of July plans?
Man, we are headed up to the farm, going up into the middle of nowhere, Kansas. Going to be
Beautiful.
enjoying peace and quiet and unplugging a little bit. So,
Good for you.
looking forward to that. And it's been a good thing to do over the past few years. What about yourself?
Yep, beaching it as usual. Fireworks, the very basic 4th of July event, and even burgers, right? Even burgers on the smoker. So yeah, very, very basic, but looking forward to just a little downtime and hopefully not 300-degree weather like it feels like every day this summer's been.
Yeah, and don't drop any breaking news.
No,
Like
right.
late
We don't want a breaking
Friday.
podcast.
They try to catch everybody. Yeah. I'll report down. I'll do a report with the
Sure.
cows in the background. You know what
Sure,
I mean?
why
We can
not?
do a special episode of
Right.
Believing Commanders down on the farm. But y'all do me this favor. Do Scott a favor. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe. Share this with your family member. And when you're at your 4th of July celebration, share it with them as well so they can
Right.
get on this train and learn about the Commanders in this upcoming season. Scott, what else you got for them before we get out of here?
Well, be safe with the fireworks, right? I mean, keep all your digits, as they say. Don't be careful. Don't be stupid with the fireworks. So be safe. Again, hopefully the next time we talk, we'll have some happier Terry McLaurin updates to discuss with the fans. But we'll see. Again, it's a long process. I think, at the end of the day, both parties want to be together. So that's a good place to start, right?
Absolutely. We'll make it happen. We're matchmakers over here on Believing Commanders.
Right.
Hey, but for Scott Jackson, I'm Anthony Armstrong. Y'all be good. Stay safe. Talk to you later.